Thank you for being with us. Sorry for the hiccups early in the show. I'm going to have to edit all of that out when I go to put this on Spotify and whatnot. But this is a live broadcast, so thanks for bearing with us and being our little guinea pigs today. Curtis, thanks for being with me today. Guys, I know a lot of you are local. A lot of you know who Curtis Branker is. But maybe there's some people around the country listening who do not know who Curtis is. So, Curtis, why don't you take a few moments and go ahead and let us know who you are, where you're from, how you got in the pool, and what you're doing these days that make you relevant in the industry.
Okay, well, hello everybody. My name is Curtis Branker, and I moved here with my mother in 1985. I was 17 years old, and I started playing pool at a pool hall in Ellicott City, Maryland when I was 17, and I never looked back. So now that I'm at the ripe old age of 54, I like to say I have some years in. I've played in countless tournaments, I've visited countless tournaments, and I've met thousands of pool players over the years. I've listened, I've learned, etc. I've also run a few tournaments in my time, had good and bad experiences with that, and I have an overall healthy interest for the game, promoting the game, elevating the game, and spreading it out to become even bigger. And I think social media has really helped with that. So I thank Jeremy again for inviting me on the podcast because I'm not a professional pool player. I'm just an above average pool player that just loves the game, but I happen to be decent with social media and helping to promote. So here I am.
Yeah, and for anybody that doesn't live locally or follow Curtis, he's basically the regional version of Molina Mike. You know, he's always on Facebook making posts about pool, getting conversations going, giving updates on the tournaments that are going on, giving recaps of tournaments that went on, breakdowns by Fargo, and he does a great job. So if you live locally, definitely worth following Curtis Branker on Facebook. You'll get some great information that way. And Curtis, on behalf of all the pool players in the area, I appreciate what you do, man. Keep it up. So you mentioned there that you had run a few tournaments in your time, and I'm sure you saw on my Facebook that there was a discussion this week concerning tournament directors making a little bit of money. And it's such a touchy subject. It seems like every time there's a tournament, half the time it seems like tournament directors are robbing the players. Half the time it seems like tournament directors are doing it for free and working 18-hour days and not getting anything. And like, there's got to be a happy medium somewhere there, right?
Well, there isn't going to be a happy medium because there are a few things I'm going to say tonight. Everyone who knows me knows that I have very strong opinions, whether for right or wrong, and I don't hold back when I have something to say about something I feel passionately about. So some of my opinions and statements tonight may not go over well, but this is how I feel. And I think the reason that some people balk at the idea of tournament directors getting paid is because pool players en masse, as a whole, are always in the what's in it for me, every man for himself, what can I get out of it mentality. And the concept of sharing or doing something for nothing just isn't part of their makeup. So when they hear like someone like you, for example, putting together a tournament at Delmarva, someone's going to pull somebody to the side and say, you know, Jeremy's taking 10% of the Calcutta money. You know, he's taking $5 in greens fees. That's BS. I play this other tournament. They don't take anything out. And that's just ridiculous. I mean, I've posted something before where I've said that, you know, we need to give tournament directors more respect. We all know the bad ones, right? We all know the ones that are controversial, that do shady things here and there. But for the most part, they're like you. You know, you got Danny Bell at Shop Tack, right? You have Sarah Ivins. You got the Queens of the Green of the Green Room, Dawn Drez and Alicia Hickson. You've got Rick Scarlato Jr. and Lloyd Boyd with On the Hill Productions, and a ton of other people in the area in the DMV that run weekly events, and they do it for nothing. And for people who don't run tournaments, they don't understand how much work it is. Is there a lot of downtime during the tournament day? Yes, but that's basically someone sitting there just waiting for matches to be over to move on to the next one. So being in the pool room or bar for 12 to 14 hours, maybe getting a free meal here and there, you know, somebody might say, oh yeah, well, nobody asked them to do it. But I can guarantee you if tournament directors stop running tournaments, that's the first complaint. Nobody's running tournaments anymore. What happened? One of the worst things for me is when there's a tournament, and the first thing someone says is, well, how much are they taking out of it? Why don't you just be grateful they have a tournament?
Yeah.
And to show up and support the game. So going back to my original point, pool players, for the most part, don't do a very good job of helping each other by thinking of the big picture. It's always one tournament to the next. It's almost like a paycheck to paycheck mentality. How much are the payouts? How much are they keeping? Why are they paying out only this much in the field? How much are they taking out of the Calcutta? And it's blah, 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 blah. And you wonder, do these people have jobs? I mean, is this their source of income? What are they whining about? So I believe that if the tournament director or directors decide they want to take something out of whatever, be it the Calcutta money or the prize fund, as long as they're upfront about it, I don't think anyone should have an issue. Now if people feel that what they're taking is unreasonable and taking out from too much of the pot, they have the option to stay away. But don't be toxic and spread poison and damage the integrity of the tournament along the way. And we've all been there. We've all seen those kinds of tournaments and those kinds of TVs. It takes all kinds. But ultimately, at the end of the day, these people are looking to provide something for us, so we have something to do on the weekend instead of the honeydew list in the house.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with most of what you had to say there, and I will highlight some of the work that does go into these tournaments that maybe people don't think about, and I think that's part of it is they don't think about it. So I will highlight a few things from my own personal experience as a tournament director, and I've run a lot of tournaments now. I haven't been at it a long time, but I've jammed a whole lot into the last several years. And I will say this too: this conversation is not because of Jeremy Mason. Like don't worry about. I'm not worried about myself. Look, I get what I get when I do a tournament, and it's enough for me to cover my gas and cover my meals for the day most of the time. And I don't need to make more. I'm fine. I'm not worried about it. I've done the whole thing where I've taken 10% before. There was a time where I took 5% out of a big Calcutta because I thought 10% was too much. And then there's been a lot of tournaments I've ran where I took a small administrative fee and didn't touch the Calcutta at all. And that's kind of what I've leaned towards here recently. But there's a lot of other tournament directors out there all over the place that are doing a great job, and they're somehow like stigmatized and looked down upon because they're making a few bucks. And that is the reason this conversation is happening, because I'm getting tired of it. I can't sit, like, everybody wants a great product for free, and it just isn't sustainable. And so I'm going to highlight a few things. I'm just going to go through this is for a regular weekly Friday night tournament, Curtis. I make a post on Monday morning. I create an event on Monday morning. I scroll through a friends list of 3,000 people and send out specific individual invitations to the 300 or 400 people that it could possibly be for. All right, that takes a while. Throughout the week, I send out text messages and Facebook messages to players who I know tend to come to my event but may have not responded to an invitation at that point because you know what I mean? These are just some of the things, okay? I do everything I can to get off work early on Friday so that I can be at the pool room at 5 o'clock. By the way, it's an hour and 20 minutes from my house. I spend an hour setting up a live stream. I'm there from 5 o'clock until about 2:30 in the morning after I tear my stream down, and then I have another hour and 20-minute ride home. If you're doing the math there, that means I get home about between 3:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. Oh, and by the way, I'm a pool player. So a lot of times I would like to go play a tournament on Saturday or Sunday, and most of the time it doesn't go very well. I play about 75% of my speed because I'm exhausted. And so these are the things that the players, I think, don't think about, the sacrifices that go into it. And again, I'm not saying this because Jeremy Mason. Like, I'm okay. I'm a big boy, all right? But guys like Tariq El-Mala, who have started running tournaments at Pockets every Friday night, and for a while wasn't even playing in them because he just had such a hard time keeping track of everything and running a good tournament and trying to have some level of consistency as a player at the same time. And they're everywhere like that. Like you mentioned a few already. Rick Scarlato Jr. is a good pool player. His partner.
I think you may want to backtrack and edit that and replace good with great, or you become looking for it.
So these guys are good pool players, and they you guys out there that just show up to a tournament on Saturday morning and play probably 15 minutes late without sending a text message to the tournament director and then trying to get in. Like you guys that are doing that, you don't realize the sacrifices that these guys make in their own game as players. Lloyd Boyard is a good player. Tariq Almala is a good player, and these guys sacrifice in their own game to put on good events for you guys. And then we've got players everywhere complaining about them making a few dollars to cover their expenses for the day. And
well, I'd like to interject here. You said that a lot of pool players aren't aware of what TVs have to do to get a tournament off the ground. I would go one step further and say that a large chunk of them don't care.
That's probably the bigger underlying issue, I would say.
I'm the guy that will show the elephant in the room every time, so a lot of them just don't care. They just want to know how much the payouts are and what the races are and the handicaps are fair, and that's the end of it. The TV has to suffer the entire weekend and give up time away from their families and stuff. That is of no interest to them. Yeah. And that's an unfortunate reality.
I suppose we should point out the fact that Ozzie Reynolds at the Pro Series event out in Tucson said that the players that were complaining about the format were a vocal minority, and I think that's probably the same case here. Like this conversation is happening because of probably 5 to 10% of the players. Like the overwhelming majority of the players are very appreciative. They're very complimentary. They show up on time. They communicate and.
Well, let's just call them what they are. They're bad apples.
Yeah.
Why mince words? We're all big boys here. They're bad apples. I mean, speaking of Ozzie Reynolds, he's a perfect example. Here's a guy, a married family man, went to college, got his degree, had a great job, got his master's degree, took a break from pool, and then decided to start the Action Pool Tour, revitalizing a pool tour in the DMV. And he ran a very tight ship for a number of years. And during that time, people complained. There were different complaints. I was one of the people who complained about the way he scheduled the matches. He would take too long and want to put the marquee plays on the screen table, and that would delay the event and stuff. But some of the other complaints had to do with the fact that they resented the fact that he would take a little bit more out of the pot because he wanted to buy better equipment for streaming and for sound. And they would complain, well, I didn't ask for that piece of equipment. What do I care? And that's the kind of mentality I think we need to move away from. So I think these people just need to be shut down. I mean, when I ran tournaments at Big Daddy's in Glen Burnie, I had one player who made every month a living hell. And I won't name him, but if I showed you a roster of the participants, you'd pick his name right away and say, yeah, I can see him being the one.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, running tournaments is what made me quit pool. I quit pool completely in 2016. I went on the AZ Billiard forums and I sold all my equipment in 15 minutes. And I didn't come back from the game for 2.5 years. And it ended up being good for me. So, because running the tournaments just got to be so incredibly frustrating. I think it was allegedly Earl Strickland was the one who said that, pool is a beautiful game played by other people. And, I think that's one of the true statements out there. But, we keep coming back because it's a labor of love. And there's nothing like that feeling you get when you play great. Even for one match.
Absolutely. And once again, I will say that, again, there's so many conversations that we have about pool that are have a very, very negative connotation to them. But again, we're talking about 5 to 10% here. Maybe not even that. Most of you out there are good and you're good. But I think that's the other thing we should say too. If this doesn't apply to you, you know that. I think we should move on.
Shut them down. So start encouraging people when these people start piping up about nonsense, ignore them or steer the conversation in another direction. You see, there's another thing too that happens in sports or games, and that's another debate. But there's another thing that happens where the better a person is at that activity, the more their word seems to have more credence, and they tend to have a bit more gravitas. So if you have someone who's an established pro or plays at a pro level complaining about something, a weaker or less experienced player may tend to give more weight to what they have to say, even if what they're saying is just flat out wrong.
Absolutely.
So I think, that's something else that needs to be considered as well, because a lot of these people are quite vocal, and they will tell everybody in the pool room, except the TD, even worse, when you have railbirds that do it, who don't play and have no money in it, they just show up to watch and they're spreading poison. So take it all with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, like you said, for the most part, it's a small percentage, and but they can do a lot of damage because they undercut, you know what I mean, and they lower morale just a little bit. So we need to start shutting these people down altogether.
And so to wrap up this part of the conversation, I think what we both agree on, if you're a tournament director, don't be afraid to make a few dollars. Be upfront about what you're taking out of the pot or what you're taking out of the Calcutta. And if people don't want to show up, they don't show up. And don't listen to the guys that complain about it. And if you see somebody complain about it, ignore it because you have not done anything wrong if you told them where every penny was going.
Exactly.
So
some teams lose money on time because they'll even add money to a tournament out of their own pocket. They're paying out 100% of the entry fee, and they're paying out 100% of the Calcutta, and they're getting somebody from somewhere to add $1,500, and these people will still complain. So, you know, you can't please everybody. Everybody knows that. But some of these people just need to be steered in the other direction. And like you said, if TVs want to make money, by all means. It shouldn't just be the players that make money because the TVs actually put more time in it to run that.
Sure. So I think. So let's move on here. Let's talk about Bnl Tournaments. Anybody that does not know, Brian Kilgore and Lai Lee have officially begun running tournaments together out of mainly the Green Turtle in Bel Air, Maryland. They've actually done some great work there. Brian is he has pull, and he has been able to negotiate them to get in some diamond tables. I believe they'll be there next week sometime. It's a great job by him. They have a huge tournament coming up. There's a graphic up on your screen, guys. Watch at home. Bnl Billiard Tournaments, 16 7-foot diamond bar tables. This is at Bankshot Bar and Grill. This is already full, Curtis. 128 player field. It is a Fargo rated event, and they are handicapped game spot races based on Fargo. And I think this is an interesting format. I want to say this is the biggest handicap tournament that I have seen in my time in pool in the area. I don't know. I'm sure you've been around. You know a lot more than I do about a lot of things. So maybe you could tell me. But I don't think in the last 5 years, we'll say, I've seen a 128 player handicapped tournament in the tri-state area.
Well, I will tell you that Joe Norton of Joe Norton Tournaments, he is the king of doubles, triples, and team tournaments that are handicapped. So if he has a tournament with 40 teams, a 5-people team, that's 200.
Oh, that is true. So yeah.
So this is the largest handicapped singles tournament.
Right.
But as far as handicapped events, Joe Norton rules the roost because people flock to his events and they beat up that Calcutta like it's nobody's business. They absolutely love that. When he caps the Fargo, you have a 1200 max, or you have a 500 max, and you can only go up to a certain level. They just flock to that and they love it, and he gives them what they want, and he does a fantastic job. But Brian and Lai, I don't know. I think Brian started it on his own, and then he added Zach Strong, or they started together. I'm not really sure. I haven't really talked to Brian about how he got this whole thing to take off. But now that he and Lai are a wonderful couple, and they both love and live, eat, and breathe pool, it seems like a perfect, dare I say, marriage, if you will, for them.
Dare I say.
Yeah. So, and I will say too that Backshot in Laurel is the perfect venue for a large tournament right now, simply because of the layout of the venue. It's comfortable. The tables play very well. Great food, huge bar, and you have the 3 9-foot diamonds on the opposite side of the bar if you want to go and quote unquote practice with your friends. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not a big fan of handicap tournaments, but I fully support Brian and Lai for what they are doing with the pool, and I will continue to support them as much as I can. Joe Norton's tournaments, I personally wouldn't play in most of them because I don't like team pool. That's just me. It's just a preference. I don't even like doubles.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If that is what is going on, and there happens to be another great singles event going on, I'm going to choose the singles one every time.
What I was going to say was Joe Norton has singles events too.
Right.
Right.
He's got a big one coming up, which I was going to mention later in the show, but I suppose I can mention it right now. The Old Line Classic. It's the second annual. He ran this last year, several divisions from September. I think Friday is the 3rd, and it runs through Monday the 6th, Labor Day. Hold on, I'll throw that graphic up real quick, guys, so that I can get those dates correct. Yeah, the 3rd through the 6th. Does it start on Friday? I'm looking for this date here.
I actually don't know. I can check.
Friday, yes, it does start on Friday the 3rd, and it runs through Monday the 6th. There is men's and women's 8-ball, men's and women's 9-ball, 9-ball Scotch doubles on Sunday, and men's and women's 10-ball on Monday. Now, and I will break the news here to you guys, and you'll hear this announcement from Joe later on. The Sweat by Jeremy Mason will be there to live stream the 9-ball division on Saturday and the 10-ball division on Monday. So look out for that.
Outstanding.
So yeah, and that Joe does a great job. But so back to the format here with Brian and Lai. I wanted to say they've broken it down by Fargo, and I don't know if it's right on. I actually kind of thought that it was right on this graphic here, how they had broken down the.
If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see where I broke down by Fargo based on a summary of Fargo ranges.
So, and do you know the races?
The races, I'd have to pull that up.
I want to say anybody above 700 goes to like 8, and then it goes down by 1 rack from there down to 3, I believe, if you're like below 400 or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, 700 and above it's 8 games, 626 to 699 it's 7 games, 551 to 625 it's 6 games, and so on, 543. So the lowest number is 3 games, and the highest number is 8 games.
It's really interesting where he put those. It's really interesting where he put those markers at, and I think not just interesting, but I kind of like it because you know on first glance you would think like 300 to 400, 401 to 500, 501 to 600, but I think there's a distinct skill disparity if you break it down by like the 520 to 620 is a very different range from like your 620 to 720. I don't, and maybe it's just in my head, but I don't know exactly why Brian did it that way.
But I could ask him, but he's on the line now, but he could probably comment on it, but I think it's probably just arbitrary. I mean, if you feel like you're cutting into half of the 600 by going from 551 to 625, you know, I'm not really sure, but I like the way it's broken down. And I think with his tournaments like this, the people that are rated 625, from 550 to 625, have an advantage. You know, because the stronger players, you have to play great every single match.
Yeah.
You have to race the 8 games every single match, and that is not easy, especially if you're playing someone who only has to go to 3 games.
Sure.
So that's not easy at all for the better players.
As we've seen, it is possible. We've seen John Moody Jr. at Chop Tank just about every Saturday go to 10 and beat people going to 2 and do it consistently. So,
well, he's a regular up there. He lives up there, and he has a well-established reputation. So I think there may be an intimidation factor.
I'm sure there is.
It's like,
absolutely.
Oh, geez, I have to play John Moody Jr. Christ, you know. And Chris Jenkins is coming up fast as well. And then you throw in Pompey Pamplona. Now you got action.
Cohen Bell playing real strong, finishing high every week.
Absolutely.
And I said when Danny started that tournament, I said that he had Cohen rated too high. His handicap was higher than what it needed to be fair. And Danny said he did it on purpose, and Cohen just played better. And he's playing out of his mind, which is really cool to see from a young junior. Anybody that doesn't know, Cohen, I think, is 16 years old, and he's just playing really good pool at his home spot especially. So anyways, I think I like the format. I think this may be something that we need to take a look at moving forward. I mean, I'm with you. Handicap is not my favorite. But this is an interesting way to do it, and it's a huge field. He filled it up very fast, and I think it's going to be a great tournament. I'm looking forward to it. And I can't 100% commit to it yet, but I believe there's a good chance that I will be streaming that tournament as well.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of hot debates on Facebook about handicap versus non-handicap. But I think the old schoolers like myself and older need to just bite the bullet and accept the fact that it's essential for business and it's essential for the growth of the game because, not to get into that debate now, but lately in our American culture, there seems to be a whole mentality about the participation trophy mentality and, rewarding mediocrity. So when someone who's a 3 or a 2 gets a trophy, did they really deserve that trophy? Well, if the system's set up that way, what are you going to do? Are you going to ask somebody who's rated 400 and below to play in an open event every week? Some people might argue, yes, that's how I win, and blah, 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 blah. But if you look at some of my previous posts, going to tournaments is expensive, and, that adds up fast, especially if you make bad Calcutta purchases like I do. You have to really look at it from a business perspective now. It's no longer the days of the old smoky pool halls. That is no longer a sustainable business model for pool. You have to provide everything for everybody as much as you can. And if this is what brings people in, end of discussion. Because look at how quickly this filled up. Now, did it fill up quickly because people like Brian and Line? I'm sure. Everybody loves Brian and Line. They're great. Do people like Bankshot? Absolutely. It's well entrenched here in Baltimore. Or Laurel, rather. But this handicap stuff, it's gin. I mean, you can't beat it. Well, but I can guarantee you, if he had an open tournament, he wouldn't have gotten 120.
I think I can interject right there that, what was it, last week or 2 weeks ago? Another great promotion company, great tournament directors, everything they do is great. Dynaspheres Cup, open 10-ball event at the same venue. Got, was it 47 players. So there you have it. You could say it's the time of year, but this is the same exact time of year, and they filled it up. So,
to be fair, that very weekend you have like 94 other tournaments going on. So people were able to cherry pick where they felt with cash. And you can't really blame them. It's a buyer's market. So.
Yeah, and this one they did have to move that event. So, to be fair, as you can see, if you guys want to know all the tournaments that went on that week, you can watch episode 4 of the Sweat Podcast. And there's about a 20-minute local recap section in that one because there was a lot going on and there's a lot of big fields too. So, anyways, shout out to Brian and Lai doing great things. I look forward to that tournament. Are you going to be there at that one, Curtis?
Oh, I signed up way before they even posted it.
Awesome. So, looking forward to that. All right, moving right along, guys. Last week, actually just ended last night, we had a huge challenge match. SVB versus Dennis Orcollo. Race to 150 on the bar box. It was originally supposed to be the rematch between Dennis Orcollo and Sky Woodward on the bar box. From what I understand, Sky's backers kind of backed out or something like that after the loss to Carlo. The money wasn't there, I guess. And so Shane stepped in and volunteered to play. And
for those that don't know, that's Carlo Beato.
Carlo Beato. First of all, it's sad that we have to put a last name with that. If they're pool fans should know who Carlo Beato is. I should only have to say Carlo.
If you want to have another podcast talking about pool fans, we can go there. But I had my head handed to me a couple of times for saying some things about that. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think I was done there with the setup anyway. So basically, the game fell through with Sky and Dennis for whatever reasons. Shane basically was like, "Hey, I'll play," and they played, and did not go well for Dennis. So what are your thoughts, Curtis?
It was butchery. It was savage butchery, and it was 150 to 93 at the end. If that isn't a slaughter, I don't know what is. Now, there are many different schools of thought here. Bar table pool is a joke for pros. 9-ball on a bar table is a joke for pros. If he's breaking and running all the time, it's too easy. They shouldn't use a tempo rack. Blah, 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 blah. But running as much as he did, as well as he did, and mastering the break, to me, is something to be admired. Now, a lot of people think watching a race to 150 is mind-numbingly boring, and they wouldn't be necessarily wrong. But for someone like me, I enjoy the quality of the play, but I'm sure I'm in the minority there. Because you know that there are a lot of pool players out there that love to play pool but hate to watch it. I like doing both. But as far as that actual race itself, between the two of them especially, you could say that it could go either way. And I might get in trouble for saying this, but when you have these exhibition matches with a lot of money in the middle, I don't know and you don't know who's putting up what and who's getting how much of what. So how much did Shane get? How much did Dennis get? Would it be considered an appearance fee? Did we really see a competition? If you know you're going to get $10,000 win or lose, are you really going to try your best? You see what I'm saying? So these one-on-one with a ton of money in the middle matches, for me, it's just about the quality of play. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who wins to me because you don't really know, or I don't really know what they really have invested in this as players. So
I think it's a great point. The only slight rebuttal I would have to that, I know Shane does like to bet his own as much as he can, as much as anybody will bet with him. I don't know the exact numbers of what he had on this, but I will say along those lines, and this point was actually made by, I think, Nate Mindom on the Cue It Up podcast, that shout out to the people at, I guess, Pool Action TV, or it was Omega Billiards. I'm sorry, Michael Wang at Omega Billiards. Just the honesty involved there when Sky didn't want to play an exhibition. Like, they didn't have the money there, but it would have been very easy for these guys still to just have the race between Sky and Carlo, pay them the same money to show up, and nobody is any the wiser on the sideline, railing it, sweating it on the side, and betting their own money that these guys did not have their own money invested on it. So I appreciate them doing the right thing there and saying that the money wasn't there and that they weren't going to play the match.
Right. And just for the sake of gossip, I saw a post today on azbilliards.com in the forums where Jenny Ann, the wife or girlfriend of Keith McCready, she posted that apparently Sky and Shane are feuding right now. It could just be a little spat between friends or whatever, but I think it has gone to social media and the fans are being divided over this argument right now. So I don't know the details about it or who said what to whom, but that's just a little tidbit for anyone who wants to go digging and seeing what they can find on either players' Facebook pages or Instagram if they use them. So, and I think it was based off of this match.
Huh. I know they were really yapping at each other the whole time, apparently, when they played their match on the bar table. While we're talking about Sky, real quick, guys, in other news, the Mullet brothers are gone. In the words of Mark White, they are now the Scissor Sisters. That's a line from Mark White. I'm not taking credit for that one. So,
yeah,
it's gone.
That also can be considered inappropriate
if you're Curtis Branker.
No, Scissor Sisters is not meant as it has other connotations. But let's just leave it at that since children are probably watching. But I'm glad those mullets are gone because they were absolutely atrocious. And it didn't do them any favors in the looks department.
I'll take it a step farther, Curtis. I do think they look ridiculous, but I also think the mentality that both players took the Mosconi Cup last year was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think there's too much of the cutting up, too much having fun. Like, we all are, we're supposed to have fun. But when you're going to a professional challenge match representing your country, it's not supposed to be about you. And in my opinion, it was about them.
Right. Well, they wanted to shine a little bit, I suppose. Or maybe they were told to try to establish some sense of individuality or to have their own personalities come out, maybe attract fans. I don't know. I don't know how that works, but I wasn't thrilled about it. But it is what it is. I hate using that expression, but it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah. And I also not listen. And I hate to just get on here and talk bad about anybody, but at the same time, I thought it was pointed out in that last match with Skylar and Carlo, where Skylar just got wiped across the floor. He had mentioned in his interview on a couple podcasts that he only practiced for a couple days before he played Dennis when he won, and he only practiced for a couple days before his match when he played Shane, and he really wasn't playing. And I don't know. I mean, it's just me, but I don't know how you can go into a match where other people are betting on you a lot of money and not be prepared. I don't understand that. And I guess, you can get away with it on the bar table a little bit, but you're not going to play well on the 9-footer if you're not locked in stroke,
Especially playing those Europeans.
World champions is playing.
Yeah.
So I'm
exactly.
Not a fan of any of that. So moving on, Alex Pagulayan versus Tony Chowan, big one pocket match coming up. I suppose I can throw that up on the screen for you guys right now. They actually did release a new flyer now with the venue on there. The date had already been announced. That pay-per-view will be at Pool Action TV. Guys, I would recommend, if you have not already, definitely check out the pay-per-view at Pool Action TV. But I would recommend getting the longer pass. I had been saying that it was a year-long pass. I apologize. That was a mistake on my part. It is actually a 6-month pass. I figured that out after the show last week. But for $120 for 6 months, and then it renews for $100 after that. And they're doing just a bunch of these huge matches back to back to back. Right now, they are streaming the Texas Open, which I will be watching as soon as I get off air today. And I'll be bringing you guys a breakdown next week in our look around the country. But Curtis, Tony versus Alex. Tony getting 9-8. What are your thoughts?
All right. Okay, so here's the deal with that. For those of you who don't know or understand what one pocket is, you have 15 balls in the rack, and the first person to get any 8 balls into their assigned pocket wins the game. So if the spot is 9-8, it means one player has to make 9 balls, and the other player has to make 8. So one player has to spot the ball after he or she makes it. Now, if I were playing somebody who's a beginner and wants to learn the game of one pocket, or they've been playing it for a couple of years and don't know the game very well and they want to play me, and I'm hammering them playing evenly, and they're like, hey man, you should give me a spot. I'll say, okay, how about I give you 9-8, so I have to spot a ball after I make it. That might work on a beginner, but at this level, it's meaningless. You know, unless one person is giving somebody weight to where people feel like, whoa, that's too much weight to give Tony, or he shouldn't be spotting Alex, then I could see you have a legitimate argument. One ball with these guys, when sometimes they intentionally take fouls just to get a better position on the table strategically, it's meaningless. It's almost like a gimmick.
Yeah.
And why even bother? I'd just play even and get it over with. 9-8 to me is kind of a joke, but I didn't even see the point.
I think for anybody that doesn't understand one pocket, I think at this level, it'd be about the same as me saying to Curtis that I'll play you some 9-ball, but I want the last 2.
Right.
You know, I mean, like, at the level that you and I are playing at, if one of us gets to the 8-ball, there's a 98% chance that we've won a rack. You know what I mean? Like,
especially if I'm playing with the house cube.
Yeah, if you're playing with house cues, I'm in trouble. Although I haven't seen rotation with the house cues, so maybe that's the look.
Maybe, yeah.
Anyway, I guess I'll tell everybody that story real quick. One time we're at a tournament of bruising cues, Curtis and I, and we'd both been knocked out. He'd actually gone out to his car and taken his case out, and then a table opened up. We were still sweating the action. One of us may have had a player in the Calcutta still or something.
Table 3.
And we hop on table 3. Curtis grabs a house cue. We play some bar box 8-ball, and I think Curtis ran about 25 racks in a row without missing a ball.
It was less than 10.
It felt like 25.
Yeah. Too bad I couldn't do that yesterday at the Green Turtle. But... Yeah, so going back to one pocket, if anybody on the podcast is interested, there's a great website called onepocket.org that has everything you need to know about the game, or you can just go to YouTube and look up any one pocket matches between professionals, and the key thing here is to listen to the commentary, because that's how you really learn. Because most people are quick to say one pocket is the most boring thing they've ever seen, but when you really get into it, it's like chess. It's like chess, except the difference is, unlike chess, you have to physically execute accuracy. So one pocket is the most beautiful game in pool, in my humble opinion. I'm not at all biased. I've only been playing it for about 15 years, but I absolutely love the game, and I wish it were more popular. Unfortunately, it's not really a spectator sport. I mean, it would never sell on TV. Unless you had a cable channel dedicated to pool 24/7, you can squeeze it in there, but can you imagine the Varner wedge in one pocket? You'd have to have a shot clock, you'd have to have some kind of groove with balls behind the head string, otherwise people would just tune it out. But it really is quite a sensational game, and it teaches you so many different facets of pool, banking, how to bank, reversing, turning the ball, pocket speed, two-way shots, traps. I mean, it's mind-boggling as to what you can do. Oh, we're just watching Tony Johan play aggressive one pocket, or Scott Frost was highly entertaining. Or watching Dennis Orcolio's surgical precision, I mean, you can't really beat it, for me.
That was the point I was going to make, is it's a lot more fun to watch now than it probably ever has been. There's a lot of players at the top who are playing a completely different rendition of the game than we're accustomed to seeing, like probably 5-6 years ago. Even that recently, 5-6 years ago, it's completely different now. Like these guys are running out from everywhere. They're taking on crazy shots, not afraid to sell out a rack. It's pretty entertaining.
Well, some of the purists would say that's not real one pocket. Because I mean, I come from the school of where you make one play safe, one safe, stick 'em, two safe, stick 'em, and it just crawls on like that. If you go to cue ball, on Central Avenue close to DC, and you watch some of those guys play on those super duper tight tables, you want to pull your teeth out because you can't even play a ball down the rail inside with any kind of real pace. It just won't go in. And to me, that's not real pool. But I made a post about that, I think, pre-COVID, where Joshua Filler matched up against Tony Chohan and Royce Basin, and Joshua beat him. Nobody ever thought in their wildest dreams Joshua Filler, who has no experience playing one pocket, would beat Tony Chohan. But Josh is such a pure shooter. He basically has forced you to change the way the game is played. And a lot of people had different opinions about that. I got over 100 comments on it. And nothing was really solved per se, but I like the fact that the way the game was played has changed now. Like you said, it makes for much better viewership, which in the end is what we're looking for. Yeah, and back to the original point, the 9/8 spot is a joke, and we shouldn't even.
It's not a real spot.
No.
It's basically a move it's great for Tony Chohan, not because of the spot, but because if he wins, he could probably try to negotiate another even game.
But then again, Jeremy, you're looking at Tony Chohan, who's a pure money player, and you're looking at Alex Pagulayan, who's one of the top money players in the world. What moves can either put on the other one that's going to work?
Yeah, that's fair.
They can see it coming from. It's like Karpov playing Kasparov a game of chess. What opening is he going to bring? The other one hasn't seen. So yeah, it's nonsense to me. The spot.
I feel like the only place the spot really comes into play is if you do end up in a crazy up table game where both players need like 2 balls. That's the only place it matters. You just have one extra bank shot in the chamber, I guess, if you're Tony. I mean, that's the only scenario. And what is that? Maybe that comes up a couple times in a set. So maybe it can make a slight difference if things go perfectly in that regard. But I don't think it's a big spot at all.
I think it's worthless. Yeah. I think it's a gimmick to just get people to watch, honestly.
Yeah. So one more thing for the commentators to have to explain for sure.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. So we got the U.S. Open coming up real soon, September 13th through the 18th at Haraz Resort in Atlantic City, New Jersey, close to home. Do you plan on going up and watching it all?
No. I won't be able to get the time. Although I say that now, but I'm famous for waking up on the morning of and taking a drive. So it's like a 10% chance I will go. But the streams are such great quality now that I may not need to. I mean, it's a 4-hour drive for me. And it looks like a decent turnout, like you were saying before. Barring travel restrictions, 227 people have signed up. There are 116 Americans playing in this, and 8 Filipinos. Bunch of people from Chinese Taipei, Europe, of course, even Caribbean. It's going to be, if they could all make it, it'll be fantastic. Let's hope they can.
It's like a decent contingent from the Middle East as well, and I think that may be a testament to the great performance by Omar in the World Pool Championships there.
So we've got 7 players from Kuwait and 1 from Lebanon.
Are you Lebanese?
Pakistan. Sorry?
Are you from Lebanon?
No, Trinidad.
Trinidad, I'm sorry. I confused it.
Close enough.
Over there somewhere.
There's 1 from Qatar and 1 from Saudi Arabia. So yeah, quite a healthy portion of Middle Easterners. Only 4 people from the UK, which really surprised me. But
that has to be COVID.
Delson, Jason Shaw, and Kelly Fisher, so it's not like it's nobody.
That has to be COVID.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the worst spots for the travel right now, is right there. So.
I mean, we have 8 Canadians in there.
No Carl Boyce. You said you didn't mention him. He's from UK, right? I don't see him on my list. I'm looking at the players list right now. So.
He's not signed up.
Gotcha. Yeah, it should be a great event. Anybody that does not know, that is a Matchroom event, which is always outstanding. They're the best pool promotion company in the business. Stream can be found on the DAZN app in the United States, and if you are elsewhere around the world, Sky Sports. So look out for that September 13th through the 18th. I will be tuned in for sure, and I will give a recap following that event. Looking forward to it.
What do you think about the 9 on the spot?
So we're getting back to. We're getting back to. I actually didn't mention that when we talked about Dennis versus Shane. They were playing 9 on the spot on the bar table. And a race to 150. The biggest package was a 5-pack by Shane on the bar table. Now Shane did run 77 or 79, so just over 50% break and run percentage. But even on the bar table, it made that big of a difference. And you combine it with the 3-point rule. The one in the side is pretty makeable almost every time. Shane only broke the drive one time in that set. But there's a lot more randomosity to it once you put the 3-point rule into that.
I like the 3-point rule. The concept, not every single stipulation of the rule, but I like the concept because this soft breaking thing has got to go. Sorry, Corey, but we know you brought it to the world and punished Miko with it in the finals of the U.S. Open, but soft breaking is infuriating. So I like the 3-point rule, especially on the bar table. There's no excuse. If you can't get balls to go even past the side pocket on the bar table, you need to learn to break. I'm sorry. We can't be adjusting rules on handicaps that cater to the weakest player in the field. That's just not how it's supposed to go.
I think for me, it's one of those, like, I agree. I tend to agree. I don't like soft breaking, but it's one of those things for me as a player that when I see my opponent doing it, and I'm not playing Corey Duel all the time, it generally says to me more so that my opponent's not super confident with his break and he's trying to find something that'll work. So I kind of take that as a good thing if I'm playing an opponent doing that. Like, I think a lot of guys get tilted by it so fast, and I think it doesn't really have to go that way. But overall, as a general pool conversation, I would agree with you that it needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm playing on a bar box with a decent diamond, and we have a rack template that's, that is in good condition, and the balls can rack properly and they're frozen, on a bar table, I don't even use a breaking cue. I can use my playing cue and have a decent stroke. So I break with medium speed, and those balls spread like butter and get the wing ball every time. So if I can do that, imagine what Shane and Dennis do.
Right.
So you don't have to crush them because, I've seen so many players crush on a bar box and thinking balls are going to fly in the hole, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, so coming back full circle, the reason you brought up the 9 on the spot, I believe, is the U.S. Open, right? Are they playing 9 on the spot for that? So I think it favors the Europeans. I think they play under that format all the time on the Euro Tour, and I think they're used to it. They don't really break any other way except for when they come to America, and now they're coming to America to play their rules.
Well, whenever you mention the Europeans, and I know this is a generalization and it's stereotypical, but when people mention the European players to me, I immediately get an image of Ivan Drago in Rocky IV training somewhere. So you can't help but think that the coach for Europe would probably be aware of what the format is, and immediately his guys would go into seclusion and work on that incessantly so they're fully prepared, when the time comes for the tournament. That's just a thing that I have with European players. They always seem to present as being more focused and more disciplined, in my opinion. I don't know why that is, but maybe it's just
I think it's
or a stigma. I don't know.
It seems like it's a thing. Like, you think of the Filipino players, and they kind of have that happy-go-lucky, pool is their favorite thing, and they don't really want to do anything else ever except for play pool. And so that gets them there. Whereas the Europeans, it's a job. And the Asian players as well, it's like a job, and not just a job, but you go to school for it, and like those kind of things.
And that's a situation where you might be not you, but one might confuse style with intent. Because for the Filipinos, it's not just a job; it's a way of life.
Exactly.
Because if Johan Chua wasn't playing pool, what would he be doing?
Exactly.
I say that because my girlfriend is Filipino, and I got her to talk to James Aranas for quite a bit. And of course, she has only been in this country for about 15 years. So she educates me on the Philippines all the time because I ask a lot of questions. And the work there is very, very, very very hard to come by. So if these guys aren't playing pool, and people might say, well, I can't believe they came all the way from the Philippines and they played in a tournament in Kansas and they only got 2,500 for first. When you consider $1 US is 50 Filipino pesos, that 2,500 goes a long way back home. So it's totally worth it for them to do that. That's why we really have to thank Ariel Roy Francisco from Roy's Basement for going over there and carefully vetting these players, helping them develop their brand, and bringing them here to entertain the world, pretty much.
Did you happen to see on the players list if Anton Raga is going to be here, or if he has
for the U.S. Open?
Yeah, no, not yet. I'm looking at it now. I don't see.
No, he's not on there.
I wonder when he'll be coming over.
That's too bad because I've heard so many things about him.
I've seen him play on various occasions. I've seen a couple streams from like they have their own championship over there in the Philippines.
I'll tell you how strong the Filipino contingent is. Of the 8 people that are coming, Warren Pianco is the weakest one.
802 or something like that. 798 maybe.
It's just obscene the level of talent that comes out of the Philippines in this game.
It's ridiculous.
It's a mind-boggling.
Yeah. Anybody that doesn't know, Anton Raga is like 826 or something like that. He's in the top 5 Fargo in the world. So, and has not been to the United States yet. So, what are your predictions? Do you have a favorite going into this, or do you think Josh Filler, we should point out, is defending champion? They did not have the U.S. Open last year, I don't believe. The year before that, Josh Filler won.
I would pick either Joshua, Shane if he's on his game, or a European player. I love to root for the Filipinos, but some of these other guys are just a little too strong. You can't count out Alvin Usha, and you can't count out Kazakis. You know, some of the other European players.
Al-Qaeda.
People can come out from nowhere, and just again, it depends on the draw as well. You know, there are so many people in this field that could run deep that for the fan, it makes for a great tournament, and it makes for great side action too. Quite frankly, great sweat bets.
256 player double elimination field. Like the draw is part of it. If you get a bad draw, and then you have to win I think you might have to win 13 or 14 matches back to back to get back into the finals or whatever. I think Mika did that one year.
Yes. He did.
This is a gauntlet.
I was there for that tournament. I was at the Chesapeake Conference Center in Virginia Beach.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, most people agree that this is the most difficult pool tournament to win in the world. So,
you know, you say that, but I don't really know enough about the Japan Open and the China Open to lay that claim. I mean, look at how many talented Chinese players there are that don't come here because they don't really need to. So, is it really still?
It may not be.
People always said it's the most prestigious handball tournament to win. Oh, they're saying it because it's a sentimental favorite to say the U.S. is the most prestigious.
They wouldn't do that, would they?
I know. Can you imagine that America first? What are we thinking about?
The one thing I will say is you don't have, like, America's best does not go play in the U.S. Open. A lot of Europeans' best do not go play in the U.S. Open, and not very many of the Philippines are going to go play in the China Open is what we're talking about, right? So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a great talent pool over there. It shows when some random guy from Japan comes over here that we've never heard of, and he
beats everybody,
beats the tar out of everybody. But I still think and maybe I'm biased, but I would think my head's telling me that this would still be a tougher tournament to win, just because everybody there's over half the field is world class, right?
Agreed.
So I don't know.
It comes down to the break again with some of these people. You know, people don't realize how important the break is in a rotation pool, but it's everything.
Well, and then, somebody brought up on another podcast a great point that I had not necessarily considered myself, that to win a pool tournament, you have to do it better than everybody else from start to finish, basically. Like, you can get away with a couple bad matches, but in golf, if I go out and shoot 10 under on Thursday, my 10 under still is counting towards my score on Sunday morning. I still, everything else is weighed against that. Whereas in pool, if I go out and run 10 racks in my first match of the tournament, it does not mean anything as soon as I get out of that match. And that's why you have some dominant performances over time in majors in golf, whereas pool, I mean, you get a guy winning the same big tournament a couple times, like you're really seeing something.
Do you remember Manny Perez?
Vaguely, yes. I've watched
Yeah,
a couple
when
times.
Pool was in full swing, he won that event 3 times in a row.
Hmm.
Yeah. At the time, he was dating Ming. She was from Hong Kong, I believe. But man, Manny was phenomenal. He has a tattoo of a scorpion on the inside of his right forearm.
Well, does he have a
That was
son
just,
that plays?
I don't know.
I think there may be a junior because I remember watching a young guy play maybe at like a U.S. bar table or something a couple years ago in Manny
Right.
Perez. So I don't know if
It
I
was,
do know the guy you're talking
he
about.
made such an impact. Kevin West and I went to Vegas. I think it was in 2008, and we were walking through Harrah's, and Sean Wilkie was coming the other way. And Sean saw us, and instead of saying, "Hey guys, nice to see you," he goes, "How about that damn Manny Perez?" It's like he was in Sean's head because he was just butchering everybody at Planet Pool, and you know how hard that tour was. I mean, the absolute best in the DMV used to play in that tournament, and it was very, very hard to win.
Mm-hmm.
I put up some stats on it recently, showing all the winners and stuff from 2000 to like 2012, and it's quite something.
Yeah, the Ryan McCreashes and Keith McCready's.
Manny Chow, thank you, Lai. Manny Chow, not Manny Perez.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Manny Chow. Thanks for that, Lai. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I used to look at the comments once in a while.
Yeah, we've had some good ones actually. I mean, a while back, Brian was telling us that they did take a 32-player sample size to determine the differences between like 600 versus 620 and how they grouped players and stuff like that. So they actually did some research on that. All right, Curtis. Well, I'm going to get you out of here pretty soon, but before you go, I would like you to call out 2 or 3 people that you would like to see come on the Sweat Podcast sometime in the near future.
All right. Well, the first person I would pick is Russian Kenny. But I don't know how much input he's going to have about tournaments as much as he has about gambling and action. So you have to weigh that. The other person I'd like to see on there is Kevin West. I'm not saying that because he's a friend. I'm saying it because of his knowledge and vast experience, especially playing at a professional level. I really would like to see that. And the third person, I'd like to see you interview a female player. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want anyone coming after me because I didn't mention their name. So I'll leave it up to you to pick who that would be. But it'll be a female player from the area who loves pool to death. Not Lai Lee, sorry Lai. She's already popular.
Yeah.
But if you could find somebody else, I think that would be. Also, we talked about earlier, Brian Reville. He will have a lot to offer as well. So.
Yeah, Brian's got a lot of great stories. He had actually mentioned, we actually already talked about Brian coming on the podcast, and he's got possibly some real big news coming up sometime soon. And when that drops, we will definitely have him on to talk. So.
Right.
And Brian's got great stories as well. So. Well, is there anything else you wanted to say before we finish this up, Curtis?
Yeah, just thank you for having me on the podcast. I love what you're doing. It's great quality, except for the lighting in my room, but I want it to be romantic. And I just wanted to say to everybody who's listening that we really need to be appreciative of how much pool there is. So when I started playing pool in the 80s and coming up through the 90s, tournaments were hard to find. They were few and far between. Now you can't blink without, you can't spit and not hit a tournament. And where we live, we're surrounded by bars and pools with great equipment of great quality. You've got, I wouldn't even list the number of pools we have, but I will mention a few. I'm going to have to. Brews and Cues, diamond tables. Bank Shot, diamond tables. Chop Tank, diamond tables. Now Green Turtle is going to have diamond tables. You have 9-footers at Top Hat. You have 9-footers at Triple Nines. There's pool everywhere. You go a little bit out to Virginia, you got First Break Cafe, you have Skybreakers Lounge, Shauna Lewis's place, and they have quality 9-foot equipment. And I'm sure there's a ton more I didn't mention, but we have a lot of pool here and that's outside of league. You know, you don't even have to be in the league to enjoy pool every day here. So we're very lucky. So I think we should do what we can to support the tournaments and support the tournament directors and support the technology, because I wanted to add one final thing is that I think Facebook has been absolutely outstanding for pool. And it's gotten to the point now where if you don't advertise on Facebook, you're not going to have success. So Facebook has been phenomenal. It's basically free advertising, and we're all able to enjoy so many streamed events that we would not have been able to see or even hear about before. So, you know, kudos to everybody who does their part in making sure that there are things online for us to enjoy. That would be you, for the Sweat, Jake Lawson and Josh Shutterfield at the Elite Sports Network, TTMD for Wayne Everhart, and a few others whose names that don't come to mind right now. But things are really good right now for pool. Pool is not dying. It's not dead. It's not going anywhere. As far as I'm concerned, it's getting bigger and even more popular. So that's good news for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an exciting time to be a pool player and a fan of pool. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to watch. I'm going to just segue real quick into my what to watch. Curtis, I'm just going to keep you on here as I do this couple things. I'm not going to do an entire local recap for this week. There's a couple things I want to mention real fast. Let me look at my notes real quick. I know there was only two real other than the weekly events that we have every week. There was only two events that I know of in the area for Saturday. Shout out to Brian and Lai. They ran a 43-player singles tournament at the Green Turtle in Bel Air, Maryland. As soon as I can find results from that, I'll let you know. It was a Fargo-rated 8-ball event, like I mentioned, 43 players. Champion Robert Parker Jr., runner-up Adam Green. Third place Leroy Taylor. Fourth place Danny Billett. Fifth, sixth Mikey Romeo and Gary Muhammad. Seventh, eighth John Pavlovsky and Chris Gibbs. There was also a JNT Scotch Doubles 6-ball limit 160, 29 teams. There was over 10K in the Calcutta, as we mentioned earlier. There's awesome Calcuttas there every time for Joe Norton. First place Louis Wahage and Mike. How good is Louis Wahage playing right now, Curtis? He's been first place in everything.
You know, somebody needs to smack him because he doesn't buy himself in the Calcutta.
Maybe that's why he's playing good. Maybe he's playing with less pressure than everybody else.
Yeah.
I have to think Mike Soleil bought their team.
When he won the Calcutta, I wouldn't give him anything. No, I'm just joking.
He was teamed up with Mike Soleil. I have to think they had themselves, whether Lewis wanted to or not. Second place, Hector and RJ Musser. Third place, Rob and Bobby McKinney. Fourth place, John Mundock and Ryan Jones. Fifth, sixth, Brian Kilgore and Thomas Haas. And Gary Muhammad and Joe Wright. So congratulations to all of them. One more really quick note from my tournament Friday night at Delmarva Billiards and Sports Bar. Congratulations to your champion. Actually, Pompey Pamplona and Eric Grove split. But huge congratulations to Judy Mirando. She is a 4 handicap. And in our open event Friday night with 32 players, she was in the final 4 on the winner's side and finished tied for 5th. Big wins over 3 very skilled players, including Tim Sample, who is a 9 handicap. So congratulations to Judy. She's played in a lot of open events and just continuing to work on her game and get better. Can't say enough of how proud myself and Eric and Steve and everybody was of Judy Friday night. So keep up the good work there. There was a couple other tournaments a little farther away I wanted to get to today. An full action tour down in Virginia at the Wolf's Den. Congratulations to BJ Ussery and Shane Wolford, first and second. Running through these real fast. What to watch real quick. We talked about the Texas Open. That starts today. I am playing Mike Hawley on Sunday. You can watch that on Z-Hob Productions. That is not on the Sweat, guys. I am on the road playing at Z-Hob Productions, the home of Christopher Zook. I believe he will be there doing commentary. It's going to be an awesome show. So check that out. If you don't follow Z-Hob Productions on Facebook, definitely check him out. He does a great job. There's a Predator Pro Series event coming up September 1st through 4th in Las Vegas. That is the second stop on the Predator Pro Series by CSI. That is the one that is 2 races to 4 with spot shot shootouts if tied. Great action. You guys are not going to want to miss that one. We mentioned the U.S. Open is coming up. Don't miss that. We mentioned Alex versus Tony Chohan. So, guys, Thank you for being with me today on The Sweat. Curtis, thank you for being with me today. Guys, I appreciate your patience in the beginning of the show when we tried to work out some of the technology here to be live with Curtis. I will do more research on that. I actually did not know that we were going to do this live interview today until about 2 or 3 hours ago. So I really didn't have time to do the homework that I normally do.
I was going to be on the podcast until a couple hours before.
Yeah. So really, I appreciate you coming in on short notice, Curtis. We had talked about you coming on, but you did not know that we were going to squeeze you in today. So I really, really appreciate your flexibility there. And if you don't have anything else to say, Curtis, I think I'm ready to wrap things up.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Awesome. Thanks for watching The Sweat Podcast, guys, and we'll see you next time.